welcome to another episode of The Virtual Reality Reconstructionist, a premier podcast for exploring cutting-edge technology in forensic investigation and virtual reality. I'm your host, Roger Ryan Ryder, owner of Triple R Investigation. Today, we have a pleasure speaking with Chris Stavros, founder and CEO of makeSEA's. Chris pioneers collaborative 3D content, sharing enabling teams to work together on AR and VR projects. In real time, its platform revolutionizes how content creators, educators, and professionals collaborate digitally. With a background in technology and a passion for innovation, Chris has developed makeSEA's to bridge the gap between creators and the tools they need to bring their vision to life. Whether for education, industrial design, forensics, or entertainment, makeSEA's offers a unique solution that seamlessly empowers users to share, edit, and collaborate on 3D content. Let's dive into this discussion. Good morning, Chris, and welcome to the show. I appreciate your time today.
Thanks, Ryan. I really appreciate being part of the program. Thank you for having me.
So, Chris, would you start off with sharing your journey in the tech industry and how it led to the creation of makeSEA's itself?
Sure. I started in tech very young in my teens before a lot of this stuff was being taught at school. I managed to land a job in data entry, and that sort of rolled into a position working for a company that was building pre-press workflow software. This is software that's used to produce newspapers and magazines and deal with some of the bandwidth limitations that existed back in the day. I learned a lot about content management, color correction. That evolved into a role working for the Cal State system, integrating campus university computing systems, a whirlwind ride through and crash course in how to tie together disparate systems to service. So students, faculty, staff, alumni, and how to tie a bunch of disparate technologies together to produce a better unified result. Typically web-facing stuff, mobile came into play later on in that journey. But I learned a lot about integration, privacy, security, and personalization, because those are all facets of the systems we were building. Then I moved into the digital agency space, and I got to use those skills to build solutions for large corporate enterprise companies, Fortune 500 businesses, to drive systems like Genius Bar for Apple, Cisco News, product sites for Roxy and Quicksilver. I get to build a community site for Monster Energy. So what was neat about my agency experience is I got to draw from the enterprise technology and integration background that I had, but I get to do it working on really fun, engaging, sexy brands that were doing things all over the place. So not just in tech or in semicon, but consumer brands, government, education, finance. I learned a lot about the general needs that come with businesses and individuals who want to put together a story and communicate large volumes of information and compel an audience, whether for selling or training or influencing. And that's where the journey with makeSEA's started. I started a company called Omegabit, where we build custom web and mobile applications for large brands, tying together these enterprise systems on the back end and delivering a unified experience on the front that typically is bespoke. During that journey, we wanted to start to use some of the strengths and skills and equipment, professional experience that we had to do something that we were passionate about. It started in the maker and 3D print movement space. So makeSEA's originally was founded as a content repository to track evolving 3D designs and the attribution of work contributed by various participants. In an educational space, for example, you've got classrooms of students evolving over the term. We're able to keep track of the evolution of those designs and all of the information, supporting information that goes along with it, and provide a web-based workflow to curate that content. We're able to brand it, privatize it in a way that is unique to the institution. Grace of working with schools like Duke University, the University of Alabama, the University of Arizona, and other schools that use makeSEA's as a foundation for these evolving intellectual property projects. And we found some traction and success there, but the 3D print movement didn't really take off the way that we had anticipated. And so it became a bit more of a niche solution. At the same time, we were closely watching the evolution in virtual and augmented reality. Around the time we were trying to understand how to take this platform that we had built and really give it legs in a future and to apply it in a way that was useful, was around the time that Magic Leap had just launched the first generation of their augmented reality device. And while most of my team and myself had a fair amount of familiarity and awareness about virtual reality for gaming and some of the, fun things that you can do with it, this is the first time that we saw a device hit the market that did two things. One is that it provided the means for being able to communicate on really important stuff, giving them access to content that they can't physically be together to see. The device made this possible from a visibility perspective, and it also enabled this new way of sharing called augmented reality. Now, I'm able to experience content that can be part of the real world and that I can walk around and engage with as if it's really there. It was clear as day that this was the next holy grail in terms of communication, how I can compel my audience and take them places that we can't otherwise get to and drive a user experience that is way more compelling than traditional print or video. Evident as soon as we started to look under the hood at this stuff, it's next to impossible to tell one's own story on these devices. You have to be a gaming or a movie studio with a huge amount of skill, technical prowess, and time to produce meaningful experiences using VR or AR. It was too far a reach. Essentially, we realized that we had created the perfect solution to help solve that problem. Although it had originated as a platform focusing on 3D printing, the publishing workflow and the way we had designed and integrated it to handle 3D content workflow that we had produced was perfect for self-publishing and mixed reality. We made some changes and improvements to the platform, and it basically turned it into the ultimate content management solution, the ultimate publishing solution for mixed reality. The platform is simple to use. You can publish mixed reality experiences in a matter of minutes, create a project, upload the content, start working with that content in real time. So traditionally, to produce these experiences, I'd have to write some code, compile it, install it on a device and test it, and then make changes and iterate. And that becomes very time consuming and expensive. It requires a lot of technical skill, and it takes all of the fun and utility out of producing these experiences because I spent all my time writing software instead of telling a meaningful story. We set out to break that paradigm. We've created a publishing workflow that makes it super easy for people to self-express in mixed reality on devices like the Oculus Quest, on Magic Leap, and to be able to dress the real world space or create a virtualized space that is a mashup of content from different sources. One of the things that's unique about our platforms is the ease with which you can produce these experiences, but the breadth of content that we can mash up in order to tell a story. So there's lots of point solutions out there, for example, for the architecture engineering suite, where engineers are building the building and worried about stability and structure, or they can use a virtual reality headset to view the building and look at specific details about it. And that's great, but it's very specialized to folks doing that kind of work. The same is true in medicine. We're seeing some platforms focus very specifically on virtualized training. We're really looking at this as a different kind of problem. We see this a lot more a universal means of communication. This is a new medium I can use, whether I'm training, selling, taking you on a journey, telling you about my vacation, or sharing pictures of my cat. It's universal, a lot like YouTube. Before YouTube, people would use video in their own way. They'd shoot a home movie, clip it together and watch it twice. And that's the last anybody would see of that footage. YouTube put the power of self-expression and publishing using video in the hands of everybody. Part of the problem was solved by the fact that we now walk around with a camera in our pocket that captures these squirt moments. And there's all these wonderful little apps that make it easy for us to stitch together that story. The reality is the medium is video and the content is whatever it is, whether I'm selling, training, teaching, or influencing. It's just a more impactful way to tell that story. Mixed reality is that times 10. It gives us that same ability to emote, influence, and compel the audience, but in a way that is much more visceral, impactful. Studies show that people have better retention and are more motivated and compelled when they see these kinds of explanations in mixed reality. And what's really nice about our platform is that you're able to mash up content that can include assets that you already have available, traditional video, PDFs, and print material. But also, there's this new opportunity to produce spatial content that has depth and scale and that we can walk around and through using digital copies of real world assets, digital twins. These are things that we can produce now with a phone in our pocket instead of a very expensive piece of scanning equipment. And we're also able to work with 3D models, which are quite commonplace in companies that do manufacturing or product design. There's public repositories of assets out there that we can use, for example, to look at the Perseverance rover or to pick from a selection of refrigerators. So the point is that the methods for capturing content and the collections of raw material that are out there, like B-roll video or image stock photos, is very broad and accessible. And it's easy for me to mix those analogies up: video, 3D assets, digital twins, print media, in a way that tells a better story, gives more context than what we can traditionally do. With our platform, allows you to mash up those materials in a way that really gets to the punchline. For example, in a training scenario, in a matter of minutes, we can capture procedural work on a piece of equipment. We can make a digital twin of that equipment to highlight the physical steps and explode the object apart if we need to understand what's going on inside of it. We can blend that with 3D annotations that highlight specific procedural steps in the process. I can have an MC that's pre-recorded or live in the space helping me to explain the experience. And what I'm really doing is mashing up a bunch of mediums: video, streaming, kiosk information, print material, and being able to experience it in a way that tells a more unified story or does a better job of explaining what it is I'm doing procedurally in a training example. It gives us a way to enhance traditional media with more detail than we typically have access to, especially like a training or a repair support scenario. I can visualize things at very large scale. I might be working in a utility closet or underneath a vehicle, but I can have the PDF documentation that I used to have to refer to on a 10-inch tablet. Now I can have it spun, 75 feet wide in space up in the sky over my shoulder, where I can look at and reference while I'm doing work, because I'm able to take advantage of this empty space to put that information. Long story short, we discovered that AR and VR are this amazing, tremendous new way to engage audiences and to tell stories and teach and train and compel. But it's useless unless I have an easy way to get my story onto the devices. The two big barriers to entry have been devices in hand and an awareness of what I can do with it to express myself. The whole point of makeSEA was that we built a platform that would make it easier for individuals to self-publish, for small and mid-sized businesses to use this as a tool for teaching, training, and selling, and for large enterprise business to be able to automate larger segments of their operations, taking advantage of corporate data and automation scales. At the core, our platform is a content management system that's designed to scale. If you use our community site, you can self-publish a lot like YouTube by creating an account. It's free. I get to put my content up and I can share it with the world or others in a way that is limited to that team or group. For large corporate and business customers, we're able to take that same core platform and use it as a foundation to build more sophisticated custom apps in a way that is accelerated, where we're able to build the app faster, maintain it in a way that's less costly and time consuming, and keep the content fresh. So the other challenge with AR and VR is if you create an experience, I need to be able to refresh that with new product data, new marketing messaging, to be able to adjust the layout to fit the physical space I'm in. So I need to be able to update and refresh these experiences in AR and VR in a way that is sustainable. And the other powerful piece of our platform is that ability to refresh content, quickly update layouts and the way things are placed, to be able to keep it current, to build app experiences where I can update material regularly, a lot like we maintain websites these days. Rather than writing the site from scratch every time I want to make a change, I go in and I update the photos and articles that are relevant to that new news, and I'm done. Essentially, what makeSEA is a content management platform for mixed reality. It's designed to make it easy for individuals to self-express, whether they're trying to teach, train, tell a forensic story, or take their audience on a journey. Uh, Part of the beauty is that all of those opportunities are on the table. Part of the challenge is that can be overwhelming. One of the things we spend a lot of time doing with our clients is helping them figure out how to apply this to their business or mission in a way that is impactful, affordable, sustainable, and ideally gives them a lever to reach that next level. When you're getting into the space, you're making investments in software, content development, and hardware. And we really like to do projects where we're able to demonstrate a return on that investment at each, whether it's buying the initial display equipment, doing the upfront production work to create that bespoke experience, or to create a workflow where you're constantly updating a portfolio of content for things like training and instruction. The point is to do it in a way that ties back and can be cost justified so that the business can make deeper investments in that over time in a way that's safe and sane for the client and puts them in a position just to embrace more sophisticated use cases that we know are out there in a way that is sustainable for the company. One of the classic errors that we've seen made over and over again in this space is companies make huge investments in a bespoke experience for training or selling or demos that is hard to refresh. It becomes stale very quickly. It's very expensive to produce. We are looking at this differently, more guerrilla style publishing, lower effort to get the message out. The quality is good enough. The breadth of content and building a portfolio of content that's relevant is more important. The nice thing about our platform is that you're publishing in a space that is continuously evolving and improving as the hardware technology gets better. So as new features like display, space detection, gesture detection, using AI to trigger interactions with real world content are slowly becoming enabled by the hardware manufacturers, we've provided a platform that makes it easy to build content into that in a way that has a future and where I can expand on it and improve on those interactions as the devices become more capable. So that's how the journey started. It started with content management, with a taste of education, prosumer business design, and a passion for 3D, and tying all of those sort of core skill sets together in a way that makes sense. We knew at the end of the day that being able to self-express and publish content in mixed reality is going to be in huge demand, and we wanted to be first to market to enable that for creatives and businesses alike.
I think one of the keys that caught me there in your conversation was realizing that clear as day, mixed reality and augmented reality, that I had that aha moment where it's not a confined space. I can see my surroundings through augmented reality, but still have the characters. You introduced that to me. It's been a few years, but I'm trying to think where we're at. We were at a forensic conference, I want to say maybe Tennessee.
Yeah.
Your makeSEA's system setting up, and the thought of being able to walk through a crime scene, do that, and still, when you're in the space, it's all been cleaned up, but we can take that and reuse it and reinvestigate it, make sure we caught things, see things spatially, and interact with that stuff. It's an incredible experience, especially when you see your surroundings. You can recreate that crime or incident or evidence and work through it again. It's very frustrating, but it's reality. I think that's going to change how we do that when it gets to the point of being affordable and a daily thing. We've been trying to develop that together for years, but you're obviously growing very well, tapping into that technology and niches that it is overcoming. I see your growth is more of an expansion, right? It's like everybody that you start figuring out who you can help and how you can do this, and you start, focusing on them to pull them in as you gather these different groups. I can see makeSEA and your group growing and try to keep up with all the requests. So that's a very interesting concept.
Yeah. So a couple of thoughts. One is that what you were referring to at that event was the ability to experience life scale digital twins of real world spaces. It was a bar where there was a shooting and there were evidence markers in a game room with nooks and crannies and behind the bar. And we used the digital twin of that space, which at the time was produced with a very expensive LiDAR scanner. So $100,000 piece of equipment that's hard to use. What's happened is that now I can produce those digital twins with an iPhone. and the quality is quite exceptional. The point is that when I make these digital twins, there's two things that are very powerful about the augmented reality way of experiencing those. So first of all, the fact that I'm able to experience a large world scale space, but still have a hint about my real world is really important because it gives me the ability to be mobile and to walk around my office, but feel like I'm somewhere else without tripping over things or bumping into desks or my colleagues. AR lets us cheat a little bit and put you in another location that you can physically walk through from here to there in a way that you can still navigate the real world space without getting bruised up or upsetting someone. In VR, I can put you in that same space, but typically the way you're going to navigate is you're going to sit in a chair and you use your controllers and you jump from spot A to spot B to spot C. When you do that, you lose some sense for scale and depth that is important, especially in some of the use cases we've been describing, whether it's forensics or facilities and operations planning. The point is that in an AR scenario, I can physically walk that space. If that room is 150 feet long, I can walk it 150 feet deep. There are ways that we can also make it easy to move the space around us. So if I'm in a physical space where I don't have that much real estate to work with, I can still navigate. When I'm walking through life scale digital twins, especially plant facilities or a venue, you get a sense for scale, capacity, and placement that is very different than the way these technologies have worked in the past. Part of that has to do with being able to relate the content to the real world. What's interesting, because you pointed out, is that our platform is about show and tell. I can put you in a place and show you content and be there present with you, like we're there together and having that experience simultaneously. That's a pretty universal way of thinking about this. And it goes back to a YouTube analogy. On YouTube, people are expressing themselves and telling stories, whether it's for business, entertainment, fun, or social. It's just a medium for expression. So mixed reality is the same way. We can put stuff in space. We can show it at different scales. We can enhance it with visual annotations and animation and let you engage with it, interact with it as if it's the use case and the content that matter.